It's turning on, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, we're ready to go, so I'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Lawton City Council to order. Please stand for the invocation by Pastor Alan Hampton and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor?
If you'll bow your heads, please. Father, we thank you for your goodness, your mercy to all of us. We just ask that you look down with grace on our city. Give us wisdom today as we go forward in deciding the future of our city. Bless everybody that's here and bless all the citizens of Lawton and give us good health and prosperity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Chapman. Here. Burke. Hampton. Here. Fortenbaugh. Johnson. Warren. Hankins. Harris. Here. Okay, there we go.
Okay, our first item is a presentation to Joshua Jenkins. Joshua, would you come on up, please? And do we have some others here? You can come up and stand with him. Got balloons, we got to bring the balloons. This is a big deal. This is defying the odds. Because Josh, and he's going to tell us a story in just a minute, through life events that happened, wasn't able to finish his high school education. And at 31 years old, he's the second person in the state to use a new program through the libraries to make this big accomplishment. So I know we're all very proud of him, and I'm going to let him tell a story in just a minute. This certificate of recognition, the city of Lawton and Lawton Public Schools recognize the achievement of Joshua Jenkins and congratulate him as he graduates from the Oklahoma Department of Libraries and the Oklahoma Office of Workforce Development's new online high school completion program. The new pilot program offers a limited number of qualifying individual scholarships to access Gale Excel High School, an online and fully accredited high school diploma program recognized by colleges, universities, and employers. Applicants must be at least 24 years old. Funding for the pilot is courtesy of funds from the U.S. Department of Labor under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and the American Rescue Plan Act funds through the Institute for Museum and Library Services. Mr. Jenkins is the second individual in the state of Oklahoma and the first in the Lawton area to complete this pilot program. We hope that the opportunity to complete his high school education will be the first step in advancing Mr. Jenkins' education and career, and we wish him great success as he continues on his journey. Let's give him a big show of appreciation. Now, take just a minute and tell us your story.
Alrighty. Well, hello, y'all. Luckily, I don't have stage fright, so this isn't too bad for me. But at the ripe old age of 18, I had some life events that happened, unfortunately, and I had to leave school behind. I needed to work. I needed to climb that corporate ladder. At a fast food establishment, I needed to be a manager. So I was blessed to have a successful career in food service. I work at a coffee place now, and I love it. I love coffee, But there was that piece missing. I don't want my children to grow up and say, well, Dad didn't graduate, why did I not have to? So I had to take this opportunity, and I needed to graduate. Sorry about that. It's an emotional thing to think about when you finally get to reach that point in your life. So I want my kids to grow up and look at that on the wall and say, yes, Dad did it, I'm going to do it too. And I'm going to make sure that they graduate just like I did. Even if it took me a few years, I did it. And I'm very proud of that, and it's time to go higher. So thank you for the opportunity from the library, and I was very glad. Did not know I was the first one, so that was a big surprise. All
right, let's give him another round of applause. Such a great example. Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you. One more time. Man, that's feel-good stuff. Time for reports by the Mayor and City Council. We'll start with Ward 1.
Well, I didn't really have a report from Ward 1, I'm sorry. But I want to congratulate Joshua again. That's big. If any of us try to take that GED test now, we may not do so well, but that's big. So I really am excited about this.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment to say congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce and to the city for the parade they put on this weekend. It was a little less than optimal weather, but the events in the park were fantastic. Great job, Krista, doing that. And I want to prepare people for the 4th of July Freedom Fest that's coming up, which has always been a huge event, and this year we've expanded it to 2 days. So be reading the paper. There'll be announcements about the activities. And I want to say Jason Poudre, our director over at McMahon, is doing a fantastic job. And thank you, Jason, for all you're doing. It's really good, the program you've got planned. So thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you. Ward 3.
The Meadowbrook Hines Neighborhood Watch met last night, and we had for our program speaker, James Taylor, the director of FISTA. He did an outstanding job explaining to the citizens present what FISTA holds for our future in Lawton. So just a shout out to James. Great job.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to let everybody know that in the farmers market, they're having a food truck Tuesday that's coming, and that'll be May the 31st, so all the trucks are going to be there, and they're actually going to have an evening farmers market. So if you can't make that, then I encourage you to go. My wife and attend there. They have some really delicious homegrown veggies and whatnot, and maybe grab some international food. A lot of food trucks out there. And also, on a more serious note for public safety, there was a fire in Ward 5. They had to evacuate like 3 houses, and I had went over there Saturday morning. If you were out at the parade, it was fairly windy out there, and the fire department had went out there and got that fire out very, very quickly. I want to give a shout out to them. There was no loss of life, which I'm thankful for. Of course, the structure was a loss, but our public safety that we have here, the police and the fire, they really do kind of the hidden thing that we don't always get to see because it's so localized. But a shout out to them. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Ward 6, or Ward 7.
Just wanted to remind everyone that the Wrench Oak Association is going to have their second annual memorial event this weekend on Saturday, and they will be giving some certificates out to officers that have been providing some services and being very active in that community. So if you want to come out and join them, they will also be recognizing some of those that have gone on that have originated in the Wrench Oak community.
All right, Ward 8. Okay. With that, we'll move on to audience participation. Anyone having an item of business to present to the City Council that does not appear on the agenda, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted with one motion. Should discussion be desired on an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda prior to action and considered separately. Council, I have a request to pull the second part of number 2. Pull 7, 9, and 17. Strike 5 and 6. Do you have any other items you'd like to pull? Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented, with the exception of pulling Walter Tadlock's portion of item number 2, pull items 7, 9, and 17, and strike items 5 and 6.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Please vote. And the motion carries 7-0. And that brings us up to the second half of item number 2. Considering the following damage claim recommended for denial in the amount of, Walter Tadlock in the amount of $1,329.69. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Chris Hall. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm a new Assistant City Attorney in the office. The damage claim as to item number 2 has to do with an incident that occurred back in January of this year in 2022. The Lawton Police Department had to respond to a series of violent felony crimes that had been committed by someone, by an individual, and in the process of responding and handling that situation, they had to discharge their firearms. The information, that investigation, because it was an officer-involved shooting, was conducted by the OSBI, so we're limited on what we can divulge in that. But I can tell you that the information that we have from our police department is that our officers were shot at and had to return fire. In the process of that incident, Mr. Tadlock, who's here to discuss his claim, his house was damaged. His house was nearby and was damaged. Fortunately, no one was injured. And as a result of that, he suffered some damage to a door, and I think a fence and his roof. It's not a large claim. As it's presented here, $1,329.69. However, legal is suggesting it be denied for the reason that under state statute, Title 51, there's the Government Tort Claims Act. And a municipality's police department is not held liable for the method of providing police, law enforcement, or fire protection. So it's an unfortunate incident that his property was damaged. I cannot stand here before you today and tell you whether or not it was the bullets of the Lawton Police Department or the bullets of the suspect that caused the damage. But even if we could say that it was the bullets of the Lawton Police Department, this municipality would be exempt under the Government Tort Claims Act for that liability and that damage. And so we're recommending denial.
Council, do you have any questions before Mr. Tadlock comes up and speaks? Okay, thank you, Chris. And Mr. Tadlock, could you please come up to the microphone? And Mr. Tadlock, we just need your address.
I'm sorry?
What's your address?
705 Southwest 49th Street.
Okay, thank you, sir. And what do you have to tell us?
On a Sunday afternoon, January the 30th of this year, there was an incident in the back alley of my house, and there were shots fired. I was not there at the time, but I was back probably 30 minutes or so afterwards, and there was shots fired and everything. And this one of the policemen there, he shot 4 holes to the back side of my house, the brick part, and 5 shots altogether. The 5th shot hit my back sliding patio door and shattered it. And it wound up costing me $1,329 and some change. And I mean, it just happened, you know, just I had to come up with that kind of money to get it fixed right away, you know, in 5 minutes if possible, which wasn't possible. But anyway, I didn't have that kind of money on me. I had a little bit. I had $300-something, I think, you know, but I had to go to friends, neighbors, kinfolks, everything, just get that amount of money going for this contractor there. He gave me that price there. And anyway, I got it all done. And luckily, I just able to come up with enough money to pay him, and so now I'm liable for it, and I got to pay all these people back, and I sure need I need to get it done. You know, I need it to happen if at all possible. I've lived at that house for 50 years. Bought it in 1972. And this is the very first time that something like this has happened, and it just, I mean, I was wronged, you know, it was just wrong to happen. I'm glad nobody was injured, except my door, and, but anyway, I do need the city council, you know, to just consider my side, my point. You know, if they deny it altogether, well, I've got to go tell my kinfolks and you know, whoever I borrowed that money from and everything. Well, I'm just going to have to tell them that you know, it's going to take me a little while, but I'll get it done. Just a little bit here, a little bit there. I just draw Social Security only, and not near enough. You know, not as much as, of course, I'd like to, but you know, I've got to make room there somehow or another to get all these people paid back.
Okay, I think we understand. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Tadlock before we discuss? Okay, thank you, sir. You can take your seat, and then I'll open the floor for discussion.
I guess I want to direct this to Mr. Tadlock. I don't think there's, and I don't speak for the rest of the council, but I don't think there's a single person in this body that doesn't want to pay that. In my heart of hearts, we owe it. But because of the state statute, if we were to pay that, 2 things would happen. One is it would open us up to a whole lot of other instances of this happening, and that would be a bad thing. The other thing is, and I don't really think that would happen in this situation, but it's possible. Each person on this council could be liable for a taxpayer's lawsuit for paying a claim that was not payable under state statutes. And that would be 3 times that amount. So, you know, you're talking $4,000 a piece. To me, it would almost be worth that to be able to pay it, but it opens up that door for a lot of other lawsuits. And I wish we could, but like I said, I don't speak for the rest of the council, but I'm gonna make a motion to deny.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for denial. Is there a second? And we do have a second. Discussion or debate? Please vote. And the motion carries 6-1. That brings us up to item number 7. Consider awarding a professional service contract to Half and Associates Incorporated to develop an Elmer Thomas Park conceptual park plan and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement. Mr. Hampton.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This kind of came up suddenly for me. Perhaps it was at the meeting I missed, but I just wanted to get a little briefing on what this is about.
Christine?
Well, as you all are aware, the Parks Master Plan was approved, seems like yesterday, but a few months ago. And the Parks Master Plan gave us a general guideline of what we do good and what we need improvements on. That specific plan did not give us any individual park recommendations. And so the next step to implementing improvements in a specific park would be a conceptual plan for a specific park. So we're starting with Elmer Thomas Park since it's our largest regional type park. And so with this agreement, Half and Associates will gather community input and find out what kind of amenities the public would like to see at this specific park, where we can then come up with a master plan, and then when funding is available, mark those improvements off one at a time and have a grand idea instead of having to put something here and, oh wait, we should have thought about that when we did this. And we have a grand plan where we can start doing improvements kind of one at a time.
Okay, and I can see that Dwayne is anxious to get out of his chair. By the way, he's positioned there, so why don't you come up to the microphone and add to that?
Mayor, Council, this item was also part of the resolution under the Propel, where it talks about parks and recreational facilities and arts and humanities. It was to develop a parks master plan to include but not limited to Elmer Thomas Park. So this would also help us be in compliance with the previous resolution that you passed.
Okay, any questions?
I have one. A zillion years ago when I had dark hair, I saw a plan for Elmer Thomas Park. Does this line up with that, or have we considered that, or is it?
We did find what was labeled master plan for Elmer Thomas Park. After doing research, we never found anywhere where it actually went to council. And since the master plan that was just done, there've been some slight modifications, but that definitely, the contractor or consultant is aware of that idea of a master plan from several years ago. But we never could find actual where it went to council and said this is what we're going to do. It was just always kind of a master idea.
And so I guess my question is to the council, do we really want to spend this money to do this, or do we want to go dust off the old plans and look at that first?
Well, I can kind of respond because I seem like I've been here through a lot of those. I know there was one out there, and I don't know if that's the one that you were talking about, that had actually even another smaller lake out by Ferris. And what's happened, I really like the idea of doing this, because what's happened over the years is as we get new parks directors, they all have new ideas and they're great, and and as we get new council, there's new ideas, but as been stated, we don't have a real plan that the council has voted on. And so things have changed. At this point, where that proposed other little duck pond or whatever it was, where it is now, a lot of that's being used for parking. So when we have big festivals and stuff. So, I mean, it's a moving target, and I think this would provide us with a target for the future that each council, and hopefully we won't have another parks director for a long time, but If we do, then they will know what the council of the past had wanted.
Actually, we found 2 older master plans, and they were done in the old landscape architectural style, not old, but watercolor type design. There were a number of plans, one that didn't have the pond on it, if I recall, and one that did have the additional pond on it. So what staff is recommending to council is the premise behind the master plan for all the parks is to have a plan that spans multiple staff and multiple councils. So when we go back to look at that, it's something that was voted on and approved by this body, and that we have, that's our marching order, so to speak. Every improvement in excess of a certain amount of money would have to come back for council to approve anyways. So that's our recommendation to the council at this point.
So the one thing I'd like to throw in is that I really felt like there were several council members that didn't feel like they were included enough in the community meetings. Are we going to post all of the community meetings and post them in such a way that the council members can attend those and be a part of them?
We'll work with the contractor. They're going to actually work with the boards and commissions that have some of their duties associated with the parks. Obviously, the Parks and Rec Commission would be a piece of that. I'm assuming that the City Planning Commission would probably be involved in some of that as well. But as we work through the process, their plan is to host several meetings. That having the council's involvement will be critical. But they're going to put together 3 different concepts, bring those back, have you look at those, see which one you like, and then they'll finalize that plan. I think the big thing here is to ensure that the citizens and council, the public in general, have an opportunity to provide input. I can't sit here and tell you whether that was done in those previous plans or not, but I know what we're looking at doing will include that.
Thank you.
With that, Mayor, I motion to approve.
Second.
A motion for approval and a second. Discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 6-1. Bringing up item number 9, consider authorizing ARPA funds in the amount of $65,436 for the purpose of replacing the inoperable mobile breathing air compressor on the fire department's heavy rescue unit, and an additional $476,931.94 for the purchase of new SCBAs and equipment to upgrade current SCBAs to the newest standard. Jared.
Our air compressor on our rescue truck is the compressor that's used the most. We're able to refill our cylinders on scene, and it's the most vital one we have on the department. It's reached the end of life, and we're not able to go ahead and continue to purchase parts for it, so we're recommending that we replace that. Our SCBAs are reaching the near the end of their life as well. We're reaching a new standard that the NFPA has adopted. We have 33 of the units that we're able to upgrade and 55 that we're going to need to be able to replace because they're too old to even buy parts for to go through the upgrade.
Okay, thank you. My reason for pulling this was I'm concerned that in December I got an email that we were putting together a plan, and it actually had divided out in different categories how the ARPA money might be divided, and they were supposed to come to council to discuss a plan and get council input. I don't ever remember that happening, and it didn't happen on the date that was in my email. And it seems like the last council meeting, it could have been 2 ago, we had another ARPA request, and every one of them we need and I'm for. But I also know there's 3 times as many requests for money from ARPA as we have money. And so are we going to look at a master plan and try to come up with a master and the council have input on what doesn't get funded?
Mayor, we can absolutely put that together. As you have stated, that is a moving target from the beginning when it was first issued, the ARPA guidance, and then the final ARPA guidance changed some of those. There's categorical areas that money can be spent on, and then there's revenue replacement. Revenue replacement is a broad category, which we qualified for $10 million of ARPA funding for. The rest of the money, or the other, has to be spent in a categorical area. We are following the guidance of our council, but absolutely I can put together a plan and bring that back to council. If you'd like to delay this until then, we can do that and bring it back to council for council input on that second tranche of money, which we just applied for and should be receiving fairly soon. So I can put that together, and but you're right, Mayor, there's a lot of requests for different types of funding for the ARPA monies.
My fear is that at one point there was discussion with me. I don't know that we ever discussed this broadly, but it was that the extra money might be needed for the sports complex. And we keep spending it, and it's not going to be there, and I don't want the council to be surprised when there's 10 or however many $1 million not there. Mr. Hampton?
Yeah, I too support a plan, Michael, and I appreciate you taking that. If I recall, was there a deadline, Michael, on the spending of that ARPA money?
Yes, sir. Money has to be committed or obligated, for lack of a better word, by December 31st, 2024. So there is a shelf life on those dollars. And then whatever money is, you have to encumber the money by December 31st, 2024 is a better word. And then it has to be spent all of it has to be spent by December 31st, 2026. So 2024, you have to have, this is what we're going to do, absolutely for sure.
So, council, if there's no more questions, can we get a motion for approval?
I have a question about
Okay.
the timeline for the fire equipment. When do we have to buy this stuff by before the price goes up? Or
Well, the quote we have today is a 30-day quote on it, and we are receiving some special pricing through Scott because of the number that we're purchasing, and then the compressor, we can keep going back for that. We don't have a firm whether it's going to go up or not, but it is a problem that we're not able to fill them on scene at this point.
Chief, this is the breathing apparatus they use when they go in.
Yes, sir. This is the air pack that they use whenever we have to make entry into a fire.
Thank you.
We have those today. We're not going to be without them, but we are at a point we're no longer to maintain and purchase parts if we do have breakdowns in the 33 that we're looking to upgrade.
Do you, Chief, the number that you have right now, there's no extra that you lean on?
No, what we did, we're looking at putting those, we have to have one per riding position on every truck.
Right.
And then we have to have some for training, and then we're putting some on our hazmat truck. We really tried to scale this back down as much as we could to get the minimum number to be able to keep us in compliance.
Well, just a comment, I think. I don't know, because it's the council's decision. I don't know if we want to wait on this item or not, because we basically have to do it. It's not a nice to have, or at some point we're going to have to do this. If we wait outside that 30 days, it's probably going to cost us 5 to 10% at least. So you're looking at another $50,000 maybe. So I don't know that it's not maybe a better idea just to go ahead and do this and then do the plan with anything remaining.
Are you making a motion?
I'll make a motion to do that. Let's go ahead and approve this with the caveat that staff bring back a schedule and plan for the remainder.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. And that brings up item number 17. Consider approving amendment number 1 and accepting the pavement reconstruction and rehabilitation intersection of Neal Boulevard and Ard Streets, project number EN 1904, is constructed by TNG Construction Incorporated, and placing the maintenance bond into effect. City Manager.
Mayor, Richard can add to this if he feels the need to. This is to accept the payment, reconstruction, and rehabilitation of Neal and Ard Street. There was a slight reduction because of some surface irregularities with that area. Not enough to hurt the functionality of it, but there was a reduction. But what this does is essentially place us into the maintenance bond into effect. And how long does the maintenance bond go for, Rich? One or 2 years? 2 years. And we're just accepting the road with what I said was a slight surface irregularity and putting the maintenance bond into effect.
Okay, thank you. And this item was pulled just to highlight all of the great things that are going on. The city's got everything in high gear, getting a lot of jobs done. It's good to see that intersection come to completion. Do we have a motion for approval?
Mayor,
Yes.
I can do that, but I wanted to make a quick comment. Sure. We can count this as my opening comment. I think it is important for the citizens to know what a great job is being done by staff, by contractors, getting these roads finished. In my ward, they just completed one in Lee West. If you get a chance, it's Oak Cliff. Go drive that and see what a wonderful job was done. I was telling the manager, I believe, the other day that had calls just for years about what a horrible road that was and when can we fix it and we need to do something. And so we finally got the money and we got it done. And no sooner did we get it done as I got a phone call and I've got a problem with this road. And I'm like, I said, okay, what's the problem? These people are just going too fast. So it's the smoothest road in town right now. So I just kudos to staff that got it done and contractors. Appreciate it. I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion for approval and a second. Discussion or debate?
Mayor, can I add to that? When I mention surface irregularities, I don't mean that it's something wrong with the road. It's just a very slight issue with the surface. So it's not even noticeable, but if you're a trained engineer, as these guys are, and they go out and look at it, they say, hey, that's a little issue. So I don't want anybody to think that we're accepting a road that's substandard, because we're not. And to add Mr. Warren's comment, my last conversation with engineering, every road in phase 1 is complete except for 2, which are still in progress. So phase 1 of the Avalon Street project is almost 100% complete, and we're about 70% designed with phase 2. A little bit of an update on streets.
Okay, and are we voting? Please vote. And motion carries 6-0. And that moves us to item number 25 under business items. Hold a public hearing to receive input from the citizens of Lawton regarding the City of Lawton's proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-2023. And after due consideration of the city manager's proposal and citizens' input thereon, provide direction to finalize the budget or take action to approve the budget with any revisions by resolution as deemed appropriate. Michael, do you want to make an announcement or anything before I open the public hearing?
Sure, Mayor. I wanted to just take a minute to recognize staff. A budget is a difficult thing to put together. It's one of the most important things a municipality can do, and we take a lot of effort and time to do it. We approached this budget this year in a method that we haven't done in the past. We broke it up into littler sections so they're more digestible and more easily understood. Most municipalities, can't say all, but most municipalities do it in some sort of fashion where they break it up. And for this year, we went through revenue, and then we went through personnel, operations and maintenance, and finally capital. Whether it's capital outlay or capital improvement projects, it's covered in that capital. So I want to thank Joe Don and Kristen Huntley, our Deputy Finance Director, and the rest of staff who picked up some of the work that they had to do while they were going through this process. Our IT department, our print shop, and then the manager's office and my 2 deputies for all their work in putting this budget together. It's a heck of a lot of work. I want to read you something that I've asked Joe Don to do here. I've asked Joe Don to strive for us to be a GFOA recognized city. And what that means is a Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget City. And it's very difficult to get. I think there's 3 cities in the state of Oklahoma that have currently received this award. So it's aspirational, and I think we can do it. But what this budget program does is It assists states and local governments to prepare budget documents of the very highest quality that reflect both the guidelines established by the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting and the GFOA's best practices on budgeting, and then to recognize individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. Approximately 1,800 governments, including states, cities, counties, special districts, school districts, and more, have been recognized for transparency in budgeting. And Mayor, when you came on and when I came on board, that was one of the things we talked about a lot, was transparency and accountability. So we're working more towards those goals every day. This allows them to earn recognition, how their budget documents must meet program criteria, and excel as a policy document, financial plan, operation guides, and a communication tool. As I said, it's a very important document, and our staff's done a heck of a job putting it together. So that kind of lays where we've gotten to. We've gone through all the budget workshops that we've had. Now we're at the point where we're asking the council to consider the budget. And Mayor, with that, you open the public hearing.
Okay. With that, I will open the public hearing to receive input from citizens regarding the City of Lawton's proposed budget for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Any citizens wishing to come forward and make comments, please do so at this time. We want to make sure we give everybody time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council.
I'll just make the comment that I think it's the method in which the budget was presented, probably. It's very clear. I think the newspaper's done a good job of following it and getting the word out for us. I haven't gotten any negative calls. I'll let anybody else talk. I think it went really well this year.
Mr. Hampton.
Hello. Pushing buttons up here, man. I got too many buttons. I agree that this budget workshop was presented very, very well. Of course, I have constituents that in the older part of town that some of them are financially challenged. And with that said, I've been doing some research with our utility bill with other cities and how how they handle their utilities to see if there's some type of way to kind of take the burden off of the citizens of my ward. And I have had some talks with some people, and I know the budget has to go forth. I do know that I was driving to work yesterday, and I saw a Coca-Cola truck that looked like a train. It had like 3 or 4 boxcars on there, and my thought at that time was that everybody's cutting their budget to try and somehow make ends meet. My wife and I were eating last night at a Chinese place, and the chopsticks were half the size now. So, I mean, it is no doubt, it's tough for a half Oriental guy. It is no doubt that we're in constraints, and it is no doubt that the revenue that we produce in our city surely does need to balance that out. But I've been wrestling pretty heavily with the constituents, like I said, in the ward. I just inherited another part of the city at the redistricting, and that part of the city is has some financially challenged families there also. So I'm still wrestling and looking at those issues, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there, that the voice of my constituents and where they sit on the utility bill isn't all positive. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
I just wanted to share the same sentiment from some of the residents in my ward as well. Although I understand that we have to at some point do a significant increase because we haven't done it in the past, that does not take away from the fact that there's a lot of residents that have expressed to me the hardship that this will bring upon them. So I just wanted to make sure that that I expressed that.
Mayor,
Yes.
it was quite an eye-opener for me when we were being given these different workshops on the cost of doing business and what we were charging and what it cost the staff actually to perform those duties just outweighed each other. And that we cannot keep doing business that way. No one likes to have their utility bill raised, but at this point, with the way the country is and the city and the state is, there's very little choice.
Ms. Hankins?
I know I'm watching my budget at home, as we all are. I mean, if you haven't noticed that, then you haven't been paying attention and making some changes. It happens to our home budgets as well, and that same thing is happening to the city budget, that everything, groceries are more, and I'm being very cautious about that too. So I think it's not surprising that the city, in ordering merchandise, would be paying a higher price, and thus the budget would go up. Those small sessions that were broken down in small bits so that we could understand them better were open to the public. So next year when it's budget time and we do this, I think it would be good if everyone that was interested in it would come and listen to that process.
So I do have a question because at one time we were given options, and then there were some comment. I'm talking about I think it was 8.5 or 15% on utility income. Then there was discussion directing the staff to raise the fees instead. So exactly what are we voting here? Are we voting on the
Mayor,
increased fees and 8.5%, or what are we voting on?
This budget is predicated on, per council direction at the last meeting, 15% increase in fees across the board, which would include utility fees. So this budget is predicated upon that, and that's what we went forth with per that last meeting. So you would be voting on this budget as it stands, and then the first meeting in June, we would bring back the fee schedule as we've done in the past, and council would actually then vote on the fee schedule. It's 6 1/2 dozen of the other. Can't really go forth without the other. So this budget just is the premise of, you understand what we're asking. We've went through the process. Council directed us to look at 15%. That's what it's all predicated upon. If you pass the budget, then we'll bring back the fee schedule and present that to council at the next council meeting.
Okay, so just to clarify, 15% in fees, the fee schedule. What is it on the utilities?
15%.
Okay. Council, any further discussion or motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Manager, so if we come back later and we don't approve the 15%, say on the utilities, what effect will that have on the budget?
That will have a huge effect on the budget. Everything that we've talked about would have to have been then reevaluated. Everything from our fund balance to some of our categorical spending areas, we'd have to go back and look at just about everything.
Mayor.
Yes.
I've seen the numbers, and with the 15 and 15%, we actually don't go in the negative, which is what all the other plans would have done to us. And it's unfortunate, but we're putting $4 and $5 gas in our city trucks like everybody else. I would make a motion to approve the budget.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second? We have a second. Discussion or debate? Please vote. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We need one more vote.
7. Jay's not here, so.
But I vote on this one. Okay, so the motion on the budget, pass the budget 6-2. Okay, with that, we move on to item number 26. Receive a briefing from the city manager and discuss the funding, in essence, the marijuana tax and CIP, of various sidewalk projects that are underway throughout the city. The city manager is also directed to provide an update and discuss the status of future sidewalk projects and projected timelines for commencement and/or completion of those projects. Additionally, the city manager should discuss applicable policies and/or ordinances associated with sidewalk construction. Direct staff as necessary and take action as required. Mr. Fortenbaugh.
Michael, did you have a briefing for us?
We do, Mayor. I mean, we do, Councilman, sorry. No, yeah, you'll need to move it for me. Mayor and council, you guys requested that I present a sidewalk briefing. I'm going to have the experts here. I have Richard and Mike Jones. Mike Jones is our ADA coordinator. He's going to take us through the steps on how the sidewalk projects were selected, the criteria that we use to look at those, the walkability studies, safe routes to school, things of that nature. With that being said, Mike, you want to come on up and walk us through how we come up with these projects?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. The first slide you'll see up there is just really a graphic representation of all the sidewalks that are currently in the discussion, in the conversation. We'll start out with the green. As you've probably seen, some of the street projects that were just discussed earlier, any street project that goes in now has a sidewalk associated with it. Those are shown in green. Some of those are past projects, some are currently under construction, and some, like 38th Street from Lee to Bishop, another one on Sheridan from Lee to Bishop, I'm sorry, on 38th, it's from Gore to Lee. Those are on the books, and hopefully those will be under construction soon. Those have sidewalks associated with them. The blue project is a waterline project Rusty spoke about just a little bit ago, have sidewalks associated with that. And the red we'll get to in just a minute. Those are the project priorities that hopefully you're going to give some attention to and help me figure out which ones get built next. Next slide, please. So the project that's currently under construction on Sheridan Road from Cash to Smith is the first project that's being built under the new on-call citywide sidewalk contract. It's being built by MTZ Construction. Again, it goes from Cash Road to Smith. It's the first phase. Many of you were at the groundbreaking ceremony for that. That project is currently going very well, ahead of schedule. They were allowed 100 days for that project. That would have taken them into July. They're currently at the halfway mark at about 40 days in, 42 days in. Next slide, please. So these projects are engineering's recommendations for your next priorities. Number one is the project that we were just talking about. And number two has already been assigned a priority by the city manager. Currently, the plans are underway for that. It's in design. Design's going well. And the plans will be ready for the contractor, MTZ, to start construction by the time they finish the Sheridan Road project. What comes after is a little bit up in the air. There's been a lot of interest and a lot of input from a lot of different directions on the sidewalks. That's a very good thing. The priorities that you see up there on the screen, some of those go back to the access board priorities. Some go to LEDA. As the manager mentioned, some of those go all the way back to sidewalk, school walkability studies. those factor in greatly. Some of the schools, Eisenhower Elementary, for example, has a high rate, the high school and middle school have a high rate of students that walk to school. Currently, the last study showed those are as high as 25% of the kids at Eisenhower High School walk to school. Eisenhower Middle School is as high as 30%. So that went into placing number 2 and number 3 pretty high up on the list. Major arterials are a primary consideration. Again, the close proximity to schools and residential areas. We even take into account, going back to the Eisenhower schools, high incidence of traffic accidents, pedestrian-involved accidents. So those tend to place, those went into consideration on number 2 and 3 and raising those up. Access to lab service, and then shopping and primary services and those kinds of things are more minor considerations.
So Mike, can I jump in here just real quick? So in conversations with Michael, I asked him, are these projects, or have they been submitted to our capital management new program that we have? Every one of these ideas, these and every one that will come up after this, will be submitted as part of the capital management program, so we'll have a visibility over that in the future. Reason that's being is most capital projects are defined in most areas or most cities as $50,000 or more. There's a number that the cities sit, most of them sit it at $50,000. So every one of these sidewalks costs more than $50,000 to put in, as you can see. So I talked with Michael. They will be added to the capital management program as part of our capital process moving forward. But we also wanted to talk about the number of sidewalks here and the priorities that were added to them. So I asked Michael to look at how was the projects identified, right? What criteria were used to identify those sidewalks, like safe routes to school, access to arterials, neighborhoods, et cetera. There's a list of things that we use to evaluate those. But to talk about number 2 and number 3 specifically, right? You can blame that one on me if you want, because council was emphatic in their guidance on that sidewalk would be a top priority for you guys. So I took upon myself and directed staff to move those projects up the list, because our conversations with council, that was deemed to be extremely important to them. So that's why it moved up the list as far as the sidewalks go. The process as it works right now is the accessibility board, and then they are presented to LEDA, correct? And then they're eventually presented to the council at some point in the very near future after LEDA reviews them. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll let Michael back to the presentation, but I want to just go through how some of these were moved up the list for priorities.
Going back to the input phase, I've even had some input from some of the council people on suggestions for studies for sidewalk priorities. And I've visited several residents in several areas on anything from a new sidewalk that leads to a school to replacement sidewalks. But all of that gets considered. Sometimes the answer is it's not really going to fall to a very high priority, but they always get considered. This list takes all those things into account. We're currently in the $2 million range for the next several sidewalks projects over the next couple of years. That would get us through, $2 million would get us through most of this, through number 10. And after that, we have the option to renew the contract with MTZ under good performance standards.
So Michael, let me jump back in here again a second. One of your council members asked me, what is the estimated cost for a sidewalk? And I'm going to use a broad range, because estimate is a word I want to emphasize. Anywhere from the $50, $60 range to as much as $120 a linear foot for a sidewalk to construct. And the reason that's varied like that. It might be $60 if they're straight as a railroad track and nothing's in the way. It could be as much as over $100 or $120 if you have a lot of encroachments and obstacles in the way. So when our staff looks at how to build a sidewalk, they look at really the least cost method to get whatever we want done, i.e. sidewalks in an area. So they consider encroachments, they consider obstacles, they consider the terrain and various other conversations or topics that Michael had mentioned, like walkability, accessibility, and a few other things. So if you ask me how much $1 million will get, it's about 9,000 feet or so. And that could be as much as little as 6,000 feet, as much as 10,000 feet, depending on the cost of the sidewalk. But let's just say $1 million is 9,000 feet of sidewalks. That's 1.75 miles or so. So it sounds like a lot of sidewalks, and it is when you go to put in a sidewalk. But all the lane miles we have in the city, over 1,800 lane miles of roads in the city, compared to sidewalks, that's not a lot in 1 year.
I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have on this so far.
Ms. Chapman.
Michael, I know I really appreciate the work that the plan, I know this is part Councilman Warren's area too, around Eisenhower and mine too. A question I have is going from 53rd on Gore north to Cash Road. There's a section where they had redone the street and there's sidewalks along there, then it stops at that bridge. And I see kids walking to school in the mud and everything else from there. Was that considered at all as far as an arterial movement to the Eisenhower schools?
It was. There was a project for a pedestrian bridge that was going to serve that small area. I think kind of where we are with that now is that that may not be a viable project because the bridge design doesn't take into account the full width of that channel, as well as some other factors.
But even working farther north from there, you know, to Cash Road.
It should. That's another sidewalk that, you know, that we should study.
And I know it would be on your side, probably that west side on his ward.
Mr. Warren.
Well, I was just going to say, it seems self-serving, and it is, but, and I won't speak for them, but when Councilman Fortenbaugh and Councilwoman Johnson and myself were running, as a group pretty much, that was one of the things that we didn't promise, because I learned a long time ago not to promise anything. But that's one of the things that I talked about wanting to accomplish, was not to focus on wards and make sure that everything was equal, but to focus on projects that serve the most people. And like I said, not to be self-serving, but Eisenhower just happens to be in my ward. And I would venture to say that Eisenhower High School and Middle School are probably the most underserved sidewalks in the city, for the number of students and the lack of sidewalks. The Gore Boulevard sidewalk is going to be greatly appreciated, and that's going to go a long way. I'm going to just throw this out here because I agree. I think 53rd Street from Gore to Cash Road is really, really walked every morning, every evening. And I would be willing, not that it's mine to trade, but I would be willing to trade 52nd to 38th for Gore to Cash Road, because I drive that Gore Boulevard portion there in front of the Cameron House every day, and there's hardly ever anybody walking there. Now, the track team does run there, But as far as people walking there to school and back, and that's just not happening. Do we need to put one there? Yes. But those kids are walking that 53rd Street every day, twice a day, and there's a bunch of them. But I hope that we can focus on because it's schools and I think medical facilities. If we can use those as the centers of the sidewalks and then spider out from there on the arterials, I think that serves the most people the fastest.
Well, and also, I think this is still part of LPS's process. If you live with, and you probably can help me with this, Michael, if you live within a mile of the schools, you either walk or you get a ride somewhere. There's no bus service except maybe through LATS, but that's another consideration too that maybe not everyone knows.
So I want to comment while we're talking about those two roads that lead to Eisenhower. I have, since we started the Sheridan Road project, which is wonderful, I've had calls and questions of why the school wasn't the priority, referencing Eisenhower West, in particular Eisenhower West. And I thought the schools were the priority. So I'm not sure how we got Sheridan Road in front of the schools, but somehow we did, and I guess that has to do with the process, and I'm sure the council ultimately voted on it. But the number one street that I've heard talked about since I've been on here is Eisenhower West to 67th, and we still haven't started, and I've been on here 3 years, and I know it's been talked about 3 times on the dais. Mr. Harris.
I just want to concur with Councilman Warren and Councilwoman Chapman that I think that chunk of 53rd Street, because I do drive that a lot as well, and when school gets out, there's a horde of kids going north up in, they got to cross the bridge, but they go back into that neighborhood where I think going eastwards, there's other avenues they could go to get to their houses. I think it's a good idea to prioritize that ahead. And I happen to like the Sheridan Road one because I think even though it's across the street from my ward, it's going to be heavily used.
And Ms. Hankins, did you have anything?
Well, I want everyone to know that I am pro-sidewalk. There was some doubt about that, but I am definitely for beautification of Lawton in any way possible. If LEDA doesn't have that money, then sidewalks will still happen. Is that correct? Sidewalks, there's other money that goes in to the coffers of the city that can do sidewalks besides that. I mean, if the marijuana money doesn't go to LEDA first, does that mean sidewalks are going away?
No. No is the short answer.
Okay. Is there anything that makes that a longer process or a shorter process by it going to LEDA first?
I'll let Rich speak a little bit to the LEDA question, but there are other monies. The Access Board has access to ADA compliance improvements funds, and I know that sidewalks get, the lion's share of the spotlight when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. But certain amount of those monies need to be reserved for improvements to city buildings, which we've done a fair share of in the past. I'll let Rich talk about the LEDA question.
Yeah, well, the way that the code was written, I mean, the plan has to be approved by the city council. LEDA can't spend a penny on sidewalks unless it's the plan approved by the city council. So in essence, and the process, I mean, even the contract that is being constructed under is the City of Lawton contract, and City of Lawton staff is managing that. So the process of designing and building the sidewalks kind of is going to be the same regardless of where the money goes, as long as you're dedicating the money. The benefit of having LEDA involved in it is simply to have one more set of eyes thinking about what options or where to go, what to do. You have another group that says, yeah, we think it's a good idea. You have the Access Board that says, here are the projects we think are important. And you would have LEDA that says, here are the projects we think important, and City Council can combine that and say, okay, here's the list. Bang, go do it.
Well, one of my concerns was if on a committee, those people on committees are appointed by the ward representative. They don't see the big picture like the council does. You know, they can't. But the city council sees all of that at once, and I just think that sometimes this is a lot of money to give to a committee. And I just want to make sure that this is the right thing to do. And I'm on the LEDA board, but I don't feel like if we move the marijuana money back where it's under the city's control, I don't feel like that means we're not going to have flowers or sidewalks or anything like that.
You can't build it. You can't buy flowers with the sidewalk money. Sorry, but
Well, it's cheaper than concrete.
So, Ms. Hankins, to answer your question, it's council's preference. If they wish that the funding go through organizations such as LEDA, that's the council's preference. If they wish that staff handle it, again, council preference. Staff's going to execute, and we're going to build sidewalks, but it just depends on which sidewalks the council wants and the process to get to that list of sidewalks. So I guess what I'm saying is you guys are the decision makers and the policy makers, and whichever way you want to do it, this way staff will handle it, but we're going to build sidewalks nonetheless.
I have to agree with what Ms. Hankins just said. I would have said the same thing. To me, Richard, by giving the money to LEDA, we added an additional step in the process. And it just kind of convolutes everything. And whatever we did, we ended up with a sidewalk on Sheridan Road now. That was our top priority. I don't think it was the council's top priority. I'm going to make a motion here. I'm going to make a recommendation. And really, I'd like to get more of this under the purview of the city manager. The money's dedicated to sidewalks. We have the Access Board has their money, which they're supposed to have. Their CIP money, the marijuana sales tax. But I know the city manager has a decision matrix he uses to determine what is the priority. And we've always said schools, medical, certain retail. And we got to get it back on, and it all goes into engineering at some point from 3 different directions. So we got to get a synergy going. The Access Board needs help. They know they want sidewalk. I think they're looking at Gorb down by the hospital, I think, right? No? No, not the Access Board. I think they need help determining what they want to do, because they have the money, but they really haven't been doing much that I know of. And I think the city can help them too. Engineering and the city manager can help them spend their money on the things that they want, not things we want. There needs to be a synergy there, though. It's great we're building them, and I'm real happy with number 2 and number 3 up on the board. But I really think my motion is to bring all these sidewalk projects under the direction and supervision of the city manager, to include all the funds resourced for the sidewalks, not the Access Board. They have their funds. We need to stop sending the marijuana sales tax to LEDA for a couple of reasons. One, because they're an extra step, and 2, we don't normally give trust authorities money freely and say, do whatever you want with it. And as part of my motion, we need to recoup any sidewalk funds that's already been paid to LEDA so we can get it back under the control of the city manager. And the final part of my motion is direct the city manager to work with the council on all sidewalk processes from planning to final approval. So we're in the loop. We know what's going on. We know what we're voting for each time. We're not going to just slide it into the consent agenda. That's my motion.
I'm going to make a second, but we just want to make a little comment and explain my position a little bit on this. Is that, I think that we did make that decision on Sheridan Road, but we weren't given an option of, do you want one on Sheridan Road or do you want one at Eisenhower? We were given an option of voting for a sidewalk on Sheridan Road, yes or no. And that's where the problem is. The council is the group that represents the citizens of Lawton, and the council should be the ones that set the agenda for which sidewalks get done when they get done. Now, that not to say that LEDA and the Access Board and all those people can't provide that information, like you said, but we need to be the final ones to set that list and and to make sure that it gets done. So I would second that.
Before we go to discussion, we're going to repeat the motion. I think it's bring all sidewalks under the city manager, including funding, and work with the council for priorities and final decisions.
In particular, the processes that we go through and work with us for everything from starting the project to when it's completed. So
Okay,
we know what's going on.
Does everybody understand the motion? And is that your second, Mr. Warren?
And to recoup those funds, yes.
Yeah, recoup the funds from
There's a
LEDA.
recoupment from LEDA as well. Pardon me?
There's a recoupment from
And get the money that's been given to LEDA back under the city manager.
Yes.
Okay, does everybody understand that? Okay, is there any questions about what the motion is? Because it's pretty broad. Okay, now we have a motion and a second. Discussion or debate?
Yes, Mayor, it is no doubt that, and I've been around the 3 years, and we certainly need sidewalks, and we need to get the sidewalks done. I feel like that we started getting sidewalks done, and I just want to make assured that these sidewalks continue at the speed that they're going. I mean, this is really, really important, and I think we've got to start. We need to keep and finish taking care of these sidewalks. I know that we've had injuries and I think death because of some of these sidewalk issues. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I'm gonna thank you for giving me this written. I'm gonna read it just to make sure we've got it right. Move to bring all sidewalk projects under the direction and supervision of the city manager to include all funds resourced for sidewalks. Discontinue the payment of marijuana sales tax to LEDA and recoup all existing sidewalk funds already paid to LEDA and bring them back to the city manager. Direct the city manager to work with the council on all sidewalk processes from planning to final approval. You're good. Okay, further discussion or debate?
I just want to say that I'll be watching this to make sure, because this was a hard decision for me because I'm on the LEDA board and have been on there for quite some time. But I just, my conscience feels like this is the right thing to do, but I'll be watching.
Okay. We're ready.
Is there any further discussion or debate, council? Please vote. The motion carries 6-0. With that, we move on to staff reports. Update on GIS capabilities.
Got to change gears slightly, Mayor.
Okay.
Hang on. All right, Mayor. We have an update on GIS capabilities. I'm excited to showcase to you what our GIS department has been up to and some of the capabilities that we now have. It'll give us a chance to shine a little bit. Judy, you want to introduce yourself along with the staff here and tell us what we're going to see today?
Yes, my name is Judy Franco. I'm the GIS supervisor, and this is Angela Sophia and Christy Shannon. They're new to GIS, and we're here. I originally brought you iHelp Lawton, so as a reporting system for our citizens. So I'm going to show you, well, Angela and Christy's going to show you how we've expanded to interconnect with internally and externally for all our citizens, and how we've bridged that gap between inside our community. Angela?
So, for those who are not familiar, GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. It's a computer-based information systems built to manage geographic information in the form of maps, charts, and reports. GIS helps us view, visualize, analyze, and question information that in a spatial using a spatial method. Within the city, we use GIS within fire, police, public works, parks and rec, arts and humanities, as well as overall decision making for you all. So I previously came from working for a water utility using GIS, so I came to Lawton and I was like, let's see what I can bring to the table here. So I started kind of crafting a water distribution asset management system. Hopefully, as this gets completed, we'll have one cohesive area where we can look to see information about the locations of our meters, mains, hydrants, valves, all in one place instead of having that information dispersed throughout different divisions and departments. This is going to be based on a map and a mapping application that can be used for field workers as well as office workers, and we can all have some cohesivity.
So before you go to the next slide, this is important for a couple of reasons. One, it shows us where our water mains are, our hydrants, our valves, etc. But there's also another part to it. When we go through asset management as part of our capital process, the more information that Angela and Christy are able to put into our GIS information system allows us to look at these mains, for example, and say that that's a 8-inch PVC, it was installed in 2012, or whatever the case may be. It could be ductile iron, it could be whatever methods that they use to put water lines in at the time. But it allows us to know what it is, when it was put in, and what kind of condition it should be in the life expectancy of it. So we don't go in and accidentally just go and tear up the street thinking that it was an old water line in there and it's a brand new water line. We want to spend our dollars, our hard-earned dollars, hard-earned taxpayer dollars on the stuff that really matters and really needs to be replaced. Once it's replaced, Christy and Angela will go in and update that and say that's a 12-inch PVC. It was installed in 2022. It's got a life expectancy of 20 or 30 years, and we know that that pipe is good for that long, and we don't go look at it for it being replaced. But I think one of the things that is critical that we recall is when we did Oak Cliff, for example, right? When they called Mr. Warren about Oak Cliff, right, and before it transitioned ward from Ms. Johnson to Mr. Warren, we were doing that road and found that we had incomplete GIS data on that, and we thought the lines there were up to code or at least newer than we thought they were, and they weren't. So we had to go back. It was a change order, and we wasted time on that project. It would have been nice to know from the very beginning to do the utilities first and then do the road project afterwards, because we don't want to put in a new road and then have to go back and cut it up. That's a cardinal sin in the engineering world. I think that's what Richard told me. But nonetheless, it's critical that we start to capture this information, and Angela and Christy have done a great job of putting this stuff all together. So please continue.
Will we also tag in on the hydrant locations with flows and pressure so that that's all encompassed in that one map?
That's the goal, yeah. And then to build off that, even with smaller maintenance projects, if there's a leak and a technician needs to go out and replace the city side lateral that goes from the main to the meter, you could know exactly what material you needed to bring to that project, exactly what size, rather than the technician getting there, digging up, seeing, oh, I brought the wrong size lateral. They can save time and gas. Of course, we all need to save gas these days.
Please proceed.
Yeah, and next, Christy will. Yeah.
Thank you. So continuing with the water theme, and to answer your question, sir, I'd like to discuss the hydrants near me. So this is an interactive map that actually came about based off an idea that I had with a conversation with one of the members of the fire department. So with this map, users within the fire department can quickly access the service status of fire hydrants prior to getting to the actual emergency site. So in this example here, if one of the firefighters were to, on their way over on a tablet, search the address, for example, let's do 212 Southwest 9th Street, which is this building. So they would see that within a 0.1 mile radius, there are 6 hydrants available in which they can hook up to. And so this application is also working in conjunction with the Water Distribution Division because they are the ones, like Angela was saying, who go out and service, and they let us know what the service status is. They compile that into a very nice database, which we pull from to get this data to update information in our GIS systems, as well as to share this information with the fire department. And next.
So as The Parks and Recreation Department is working with the Comanche County Health Department for preparing for Trails Fest 2022. Keith, I'm going to butcher his name, Nietzsche, asked me if we had any visitor maps for Elmer Thomas Park. And I looked around and I was like, no, we don't. So I built this, it's still in progress, a mapping application to show kind of points of interest within Elmer Thomas Park, and then also a static printable map. It's down there. We'll disperse a copy of this so you guys can blow up these images later as you please. I've made a general visitors map for Elmer Thomas Park showing the paths, the composition of the paths, and also a little blurb of information like why is it named Elmer Thomas Park, and a little bit more information about the walkability of the paths. For Trails Fest, I'll be creating a map for the 5K that's going to be taking place there, the different routes that will be used for biking or walking, because there will be 3 different types of events at the 5K, and also where features will be like first aid and the starting line, of course, and that'll be disseminated so that they can print those out and give them out to participants in June. And next. Okay, this was a bit of a fun map to make. So this is an interactive trail map, which was designed to show Lawton parks and trails. It also features trails within the Wichita Wildlife Refuge. This map will provide users with trail information such as difficulty, length, and whether it is pet-friendly or not. It also features a profile tool to show elevation along a trail. In the example, if I, for example, were going to go walk a path in the wildlife refuge, you know, I would select a path here. If I wanted a bit of a challenge, maybe this path that's up here on the board. So I could use the profile tool to take a look at what my hike will look like. That way I can see how many energy bars to bring to get me up the hill. So I think this will be very interesting for our citizens and for people who want to come and visit Lawton as well. And this application is in the final stages of completion, and it will be available for the public soon. And next, I would like to discuss the Highland Cemetery project. And for about a year now, the Highland Cemetery project has been available for the public and continues to be a work in progress. Users can search by name to find plots and view pictures of monuments. What I want to talk about now that is sort of new to bring to your attention is that we are actually transferring the old data that's in an Access database into our GIS system, which is an Esri product. And basically it'll be a dashboard style, a one-stop shop for the cemetery sexton to put all kinds of data that he needs to put in for the cemetery interments. So this will actually help us automate data collection, and we also would like to link this data that he will be inputting, some of the data, into what the public sees now, such as first name, last name, whether they have a military affiliation, and then of course where their plot is located, and a picture of the monument. So this project is in conjunction with the Parks and Rec Department, specifically the cemetery, who kindly walked me through all of their process for inputting data. And next, I would like to talk about briefly a mowing map. The mowing map was requested to inform citizens of mowing maintenance similarly to the intent of the mosquito vector map. This map will show areas of maintained properties owned right-of-ways and provide information such as mowing data. This map is in its final stages as well.
Christy it did it just because it's a beta version that didn't load the map.
Yes, sir. I did not make it public.
One of the things I'd asked Judy and Christy and Angela to do was the stuff that we get a lot of questions on, like when are they going to mow this? Who mows this, for example? It's just very, we get asked a lot of those questions. So I can click on that particular stretch of road and know that it's Teen Challenge, for example, that's mowing that particular stretch and when it's supposed to be mowed. Now, weather affects some of those things, but at least we know generally when it's supposed to be done, and whether it's city maintained or whether it's contractor maintained. And I think that's a great tool to have. Also, when we're vector spraying for mosquitoes, we still do that, and that's one of the ways we control mosquitoes. My wife asked me, we still do that? Because they did that when I was a kid, a long time ago now. But yeah, we still do those things along with mosquito dunks and other things. But Christy, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to mention that this map will be utilized with the help of the Parks and Rec Department, who keeps track of everything what Mr. Cleghorn just said, and also I'm going to be working with the Drainage Maintenance Division, because we also need to mow in the areas where there are creeks throughout town. And this map will be made available to the public soon, and this whole presentation will be available soon for a limited time, so I will update that map so you can view it. All right, and next.
Being from Washington and moving down here to Oklahoma, I was getting a lot of flack from my parents. Oh, you're going to get blown away by a tornado. So that was kind of my inspiration for this Comanche County Tornado History Project. I wanted to compile not only where tornadoes have happened and what their strength have been, but also a timeline of significant tornadoes, some statistics about them. You'll see in the little dashboard down there. So I've gathered all the information about tornadoes from 1950 to 2021, put them all in a fun little, it's called an experience builder. It's kind of like a website, so this is an example of one of the pages from that project. Along with this, you'll see a fun map when it's all done, and also a timeline, and I'm hoping to maybe gather some accounts of people who were in Lawton when they saw some of these tornadoes and what they felt and what they experienced as they came through. Yeah, this should be done pretty soon, and this will be submitted to our South Central ARC User Group Conference in September. Hopefully it'll bring home a prize for Judy. And next.
So, Mayor, Council, thank you very much for listening to our staff report. I just wanted to kind of briefly mention some of the other items that we've worked on. For example, we helped out with the police department, made their Armed Forces Parade map. We are working with Parks and Rec Department to make maps for grant proposals. Of course, we maintain and update fire station and ladder response zones. We also update and it's an ongoing process, but all the water meters that are in town, we make zone maps for them so that it's easier for the water meter readers to stay within a specific zone and allocate their best time. And then just various updates throughout the city, just maintaining our data. And the GIS has a lot of more projects to work on in the future. Some things that we want to look at are an interactive angler map for Lake Latonka. Very excited about that one. I think it gets us a field trip. It's always good. Inter-city connectability analysis, Freedom Festival and International Festival story maps, and geocaching activities for not just for us to have fun, but also for visitors who want to visit Lawton. Thank you.
So do we get questions?
Sure, yes.
So I'm not familiar with all this stuff on our website. From the front page, do I just go to the bottom and it's down there something that says trails?
It's on our GIS, so you'll have to go through departments, and there's for geographic information, if you go there, we have everything listed out there, so there's all of our listed of interactive maps. This actually we'll email to the council, so you can actually follow the links inside there, so you'll have that, and everything will be available in there.
And like the Wichita Mountains Trails map, you're just tapping into another database or what?
No, it's all in one. It's all inclusive. So it takes you to separate links. If you go to our website, they'll have, interactive maps for our trails, the mowing, mosquito, everything's listed out there. So you can just click on which one.
This is all created in-house. Our staff, our team created all this and put it all together. They've done all the work, and they've done a heck of a job. One thing that our website currently doesn't do, which we are working on and looking at in discussions with Judy, is transitioning our current mainframe or wire, what do you call it, the wire rack?
Yes.
on how it's put together to a better, more supportable program. It is a little difficult to move around in, and as we get through some of these Tyler projects that we're working through with our limited staff, we will get back to making our web page a little more interactive and user-friendly.
And a final comment, but I see a few other comments, but final from me, since we're talking and you guys do the iHelp, I really wish that had a more prominent place on our front page, our home page of our website because it's such a valuable tool, and it frustrates me that so many citizens still don't know about it. And the response on those potholes when I put them in is so fast. I have to commend the staff. Mr. Warren.
I just want to thank staff for all of y'all and those that preceded you back in the day when we very first started this. I think at one point, and it already does to a certain extent, but I think at one point everything that we do in the city will be attached to GIS mapping in some way, shape, or form for staff's use and for the citizens' use, and I think it's a great thing. Thank you.
And Ms. Hankins.
Memorial Day's coming up. People, family coming to find locations of their family at the cemetery. Will you have that ready this year, or will you wait till next year? Or?
Oh, no, that is available.
That is
For the
available.
public viewing, yes,
Okay.
that is available right now.
Well, my family, we do a lot of ancestry, and I want to also brag on the library. They have an excellent resource area for ancestry genealogy. So it sounds like we're ready to go.
Right, Mr. Hampton.
Yeah, information is power, isn't it? And I think that it's fantastic that you guys have this. I think that I want to second from the mayor, if there could be a static button or something on the front page. At our neighborhood watch meeting, my wife actually printed all of your pages to try to educate the older people. I'm old too, by the way, and she educates me all the time. But that aren't as handy with technology, and the quicker they can see the button and familiarize themselves with it, the better. But I appreciate the city manager and all the staff are really taking us into into this century. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, they've done a great job. Everything I can dream up, and Judy will tell you, I dream up a lot. For them to put in GIS, I think sometimes they dread me walking back there because not only do I take her little mints that I also get from Tracy. That's the only sweets I get really, is get their mints. I don't come back there just for that. But they've done a heck of a job of moving us forward with technology and providing a lot of information to our citizens. So I just wanted to thank them. I was there the other day and they were showing me the water lines and the water meters and the fire hydrants. And I'm like, we really need to update the council on some of the capabilities that we have and that we're working towards having. And thank you.
Mr. Harris.
I have a quick comment. I'll take his spot. The manager spoke about that we do still spray for mosquitoes. I just wanted to make sure that the public understood we don't use DDT anymore. And that's because if you look at Mr. Fortenbaugh, myself, and the mayor, if you look at our head, that's what happens when you ride behind that in your bicycle.
Thank you for leaving me out of that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? You ladies did a great job. Don't you think they deserve
Awesome.
a round of applause? All right, now we've got a finance report.
Okay. This is going to be the finance report for the month ending April 30, 2022. And the first thing is we always talk about is our comparison to sales tax. We did see a bit of a decline from what was collected last year during the month of May. This decline was, let me get to that page. It was about $600,000. No, but I'm sorry. That's next month's decline. About $300,000. And part of the reason for that decline is in March of 2021, the federal government released their stimulus checks. And everybody went out and spent their stimulus checks, and we realized that revenue in May. So that's part of the reason for our decline. We are up from April of this month,
We did expect a little bit of a increase from April, and we saw that. Historically, between May and June, we'll see about a $300,000 to $500,000 decrease in our sales tax. I do expect that to hold. Water and sewer revenues are all a little bit down from the average of 2021 and the average of 2022. This is related on to usage, directly to usage, and unfortunately, with a week like we're having this week, we'll expect a little bit more, further decline because people are not going to be using the water to water their lawns and such as that. They're going to be they're going to be saving that revenue. And also, one of the things that we've seen is that part of the reason for the decline here in sales tax is as inflation has risen, I think we have seen some people pull back on their disposable spending. Inflation has gone up, that induces a fear in the consumer, and they've pulled back on their spending to save that money. And I think we've seen that. As far as our expenditures are concerned, well, actual revenue, for taxes, in a year-to-date comparison, we have seen about a 10.5% increase in our sales tax and other taxes. If we look at some of the other services, other service revenues we see, the big area that we see is a decrease from last year is intergovernmental revenues, which would be grants. Last year, we received our ARPA grants. We have not received that yet this year. So that's the reason for the sharp decline in the intergovernmental. Some of our other fees and services are declining slightly. And this is one of the reasons that when we look at the fees for next year, we have raised everything 15% because the fees alone do not make up a large part of our budget as our revenues. General fund expenses, we've seen increases in personnel, materials and supplies. Here we're seeing a little bit of a decrease in other services and charges, which will be sharply different in the enterprise funds. Capital improvement is slightly down. The reason for the personnel increases are because of changes mid-year that had to be accomplished or had to be put into place to retain and attract employees. Enterprise fund, again, our water, sewer, garbage revenues as a comparison over the past 3 years. We can see we're down slightly in 3 out of the 4. Our garbage revenues are not are holding pretty steady. The landfill revenues are percentage-wise is probably the largest percentage decline. That is because of some billing issues that we've gotten straightened out. We have notified customers that a new bill for April, May, and March, April, and May are coming out. The March and April bills have already been recalculated and submitted to the customers. We just haven't seen that revenue come in yet. Our May bills will be recalculated and sent out soon, and June we expect to be on track. As far as other services, other charges for services that we have out there, that's going to be a little bit up. Intergovernmental is for 21 and 22 are non-existent. We had some grant revenues in 2020 for the enterprise fund, but we haven't seen that here. Our interest monies that we've received and/or loans that we have gone out for is down for this year, and our miscellaneous revenues are pretty stable. And again, here, as far as our expenditures are concerned, personnel is up a little bit because of the same reasons, because of the general fund. Our materials and supplies are up slightly, but I wanted to draw your attention to the amount of money that is spent in other services and charges here. And I think the city manager has talked to you a little bit about the inflation rate for energy that we're experiencing right now, and that's upwards to around 30%. That's where this category is where we see that increase. That's our utility bills, where we purchase our fuel, and things like our insurance rates and things like that are all housed in other services and charges. And there's a drastic increase. Just the amount of money that is spent there that's beyond our control is pretty amazing. It is up for the reasons that we've stated over the past month. Inflation's driven those costs up, and that's where we see them. That's pretty much the finance report in a nutshell. If you have any specific questions, please address them to the city manager or myself. Be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Before we go for a motion for executive session, the city attorney wants to address the council.
Council, just a point of clarification here. With respect to agenda item number 26, we don't need to reconsider it this time, but in accordance with Chapter 10, paragraph 2-205, subparagraph C, medical marijuana sales tax money is directly apportioned to LEDA. So before Mr. Fortenbaugh's motion can be finalized and before the recoupment can be finalized, we're going to have to change the ordinance.
So I was under the impression this was direction to bring all the paperwork back necessary to make it happen. Am I wrong? Let's look at this motion.
This is discontinue and recoup.
Okay, so you're the lawyer, but I would say it's pretty clear that it's understood that the proper ordinances have to be changed as part of the process of getting to this end result.
That's what I intended. That's what I wanted.
Okay, so you understand that, Michael? Okay, thank you very much. And now I'll entertain a motion, go to executive session. I have a motion. Did I hear a second? Second. Please call the roll.
Hampton. Yes. Fortenbaugh. Yes. Johnson. Warren. Yes. Hankins. Yes. Harris. Yes. Chapman. Yes.
Okay, is this room right back here available, or do we have to go up? Okay, is it big enough back here? Okay, we're going back here, guys. Hey, Michael.
That would have added more time, too.
Okay, we're back from executive session. Please call the roll.
Johnson. Warren. Hankins. Harris. Chapman. Hampton. Fortenbaugh.
And number 27, John.
Pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, council convened an executive session to discuss a pending claim regarding Stantec Architecture. I understand there is a motion on this agenda item.
Yes, sir, there is a motion. I motion to authorize the city attorney to settle the city's pending claim against Stantec for $84,990.99 in exchange for the Revit BIM model and a final discharge of the city's debt.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote. The motion carries 7-0. Motion for adjournment? So, and a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Warren. Hankins. Harris. Chapman. Hampton. Fortenbaugh. Johnson.